Okay, so we are live. It is 10 o'clock here on the Pacific time zone. I'm in Oregon, so it's 10 o'clock a.m. out here. 1 o'clock if you're joining me on the East Coast. And we are live. I'm going to wait a few minutes to allow everyone to kind of hop on and make sure that their page is working. You should be able to log into the chat box down below the video. I'm going to pull up my chat box here. If you can, I see we already have quite a few people on, so welcome. Just to make sure, if you can see my screen, you should be able to see my keynote presentation there, and you should be able to hear me okay. So if that is all working,
I'm going to pull up my chat box here. If you can, I see we already have quite a few people on, so welcome.
Okay, now we should be good. Listening to myself in audio here. If you can hear me and everything is okay, could you please let me know in the chat box there that everything is working as it should? If you can maybe see me but not hear me, well, then you don't know what to do. But if you can hear me and not see me, go ahead and give the page a refresh. I'm going to type that into the chat box here. If you cannot see or hear, please refresh the page. All right, so I'm going to give just a minute or two. I have quite a few new people here that haven't done webinars with me before, so I want to make sure that you can see and hear everything okay. And if you're watching on the replay, just pardon us for these first few minutes as we get through the techie stuff. I want to get this all out of the way now so that we can get through all of our content today without having to worry about tech issues. So if you can see and hear everything okay, please let me know in the chat box below. Give me a little thumbs up. Just let me know that you're here, a little wave. And then we will get started because I don't want to get into everything until I know that at least one person is seeing me and hearing me. And I am going to have to ask you to pardon me. I can hear, but the picture is static. Okay. Well, I did accidentally have like double windows open at first. So I think it was kind of like trying to pick up double things. So hopefully refreshing should take care of that. But yeah, I do have to ask you to kind of look over the fact, of course, I have been healthy all of the season. Changing static for you. You know what? Maybe I will try plugging directly into my router. That might make a difference here. Try refreshing if it's staticky. Sorry about this, everyone. I want to make sure this is all working before we get too deep into everything. I can't see or hear. Oh, yeah, I'm mobile. I'm not sure if Mary says she's mobile. I don't really know. Pardon the noise here for a moment, everyone. We'll get this working. Don't worry. I've got lots of good stuff to share today, but I want to make sure we're all here before we really get into it. So, okay, so I'm hooked up directly to my router now. So if you have a staticky picture, go ahead and maybe refresh the page. That should have taken care of that problem. I was kind of hoping I could do this wireless. As I was saying earlier, to pardon me, I have been healthy all through the season changes, and then I plan a webinar and immediately come down with the flu. So I am here with my tissues and my cough drops and some tea, and hopefully we can make it through. I was kind of hoping I could do this wireless from a more comfortable spot, but it's okay. We're going to get into it. So I'm going to give maybe 1 or 2 more minutes here for everyone to hop on, to log into the chat box. Again, if you're having a staticky image, go ahead and refresh the page. I've plugged directly into my router now, so it should be a much better connection. And you should be able to see my screen. I apologize. I was going to say hi from a personal standpoint, but you don't want to see what's on the other side of this here, I promise. The flu is not treating me well, so I'll spare you that. But we're going to give 1 more minute here. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, I apologize for the few minutes of techie stuff. I just want to get that out of the way before we really get into it. If you are hopping right over from a link in Facebook and did not register, you will not get a replay. If you go back maybe through a Facebook page and find the original post about this, you should still be able to register and get on the email list, and then you'll get a replay of this sent out. And there was also a action guide that came along with this. So hopefully if you've registered and you're joining me, hopefully you printed out those few pages of the action guide, because they gave you some like pre-webinar work that you could do to kind of make the most of our time today. So if you did have a chance to get that, make sure you grab it before we really get started. Okay, so it's 5 minutes after. I don't want to take up too much of your time this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're joining me from. So we're gonna go ahead and get right on into it. So I'm gonna put my thing up full screen. Just so you know, while I'm in the full screen mode, I will not be able to see the chat box. So hopefully you guys can help each other out if there's any other kinds of issues. And then I'll pop out periodically to look at that. So let's get, whoops, we're gonna get right on into it here. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. Today, our webinar topic is something new that I haven't put together. This is the first I've done this webinar. I've kind of been doing a lot of the same things lately, the past like few months. So I'm really excited to do something new today. And we're going to be talking about Rock Your New Year, which, you know, I have a couple of different Facebook groups. Some of the names in here I'm very familiar with. You guys are joining me from my Facebook communities. And a lot of the discussions that kind of happen around this time of year are that people are feeling in a rut, even like brand new homeschoolers, seasoned homeschoolers. It's just that, you know, even teachers, I used to teach in the public schools, and this is just that time of year where you're starting to feel burnt out, like you're in a little bit of a rut. You're not really sure what you're going to do next. The holidays are coming, so maybe you don't really want to do much of anything right now. And that's totally normal. So if those are, you know, hitting some pain points for you, totally normal. I'm feeling it as well over here with my homeschooling routine with my children. So that's why we're here. I really want to help you get focused going into the new year. And I have lots of information that I want to share with you, sort of my process of how I, you know, keep my momentum and set new goals and make plans. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so like I just mentioned, you're here, you're in the right place if you've been feeling like you're in a rut with your daily homeschool routine. And that's something that I'm hearing a lot from homeschooling families that I work with, that they just, you know, just kind of feeling like we're doing the same thing every day. Maybe the kids are acting kind of bored. You know, maybe you just aren't quite sure what you're going to do next. I just want to hop out here real quick, guys, and just make, oh, look, you know, you're looking at my face and this isn't what you want to see. I told you I wasn't going to show you. Okay, so we're going to have to go back into the screen share. There we go. We'll get this worked out. All right. Hopefully I didn't scare anyone away with my scary flu face. But anyway, so I guess I'm not going to be able to go to the full screen. So you're going to have to look at my keynote. So no peeking ahead at the slides, guys. All right, so there we go. So you've been feeling like you're in a rut with your daily homeschool routine, maybe. And you're also here in the right place if you want to wake up every day with excitement and passion to teach and learn with your children. And that's one of the things that I really try to promote with the homeschooling families that I work with, is kind of, you know, you get to learn too. You're not just, you know, the teacher and the student. You really get to kind of, one of the big benefits of homeschooling is that you get to create that relationship with your child. It's kind of an extra level just from parent and child. You get to create that bonding experience through learning new things together. And it's really a fantastic like symbiotic relationship. So one of the things I really promote and encourage is, you know, learning along with your child. And if you really are wanting to feel that way, then you're in the right place today. So just a few housekeeping rules before we really get into the meat of things. If you can limit as many distractions as you can, we'll get the most out of our time today. I don't like speaking forever on webinars. I like to try to keep it to about an hour, not counting the Q&A. So I'm going to probably talk fast. I'm also not feeling well, so I know my voice is kind of scratchy. So I want you to be able to focus. So, you know, close down the Facebook, you know, mute your phone, turn off the Instagram, limit your children and your husbands if you can. I had to ship mine out of the house. There was no way that was happening today. But, you know, try to limit your distractions as much as possible so we can focus and get through here. Make sure you have a pen. And if you, like I mentioned earlier, if you registered anytime yesterday or the day before, and you were able to print out that action guide, make sure you have that. That's going to be really helpful for you as we work through some of the slides and topics today. If you didn't have a chance to print that out, or you join me just through the Facebook link and don't even know what I'm talking about, just grab a piece of paper. It's okay. You won't be really missing, you know, you'll still get a lot out of this out of everything today. But definitely when you take notes, you're more likely to implement things, you're more likely to make changes and remember what you were talking about than if you just kind of have the idea and let it slide. So grab a pen and paper if you haven't already, and that'll help you make the most of what I'm going to talk about. Engage in the chat box below. I am going to come back. Like I mentioned, I can't see the chat box the whole time when I'm presenting here, but I am going to come back to it at the end. I want to have a Q&A at the end. And actually, you know what? This is not, there we go. Yeah, so I'm going to come back with the Q&A at the end, and I'll read back through the chat box. So if you have any questions that pop up along the way, type them in the chat box so you don't forget them, or jot them down on your paper, and we'll come back and we'll talk about those. And then make sure you stay until the end. I have some fun things I want to share with you related to today's topic. I have a homeschool action planner we're going to be talking about. I have an ebook I'm going to be talking about. So lots of cool stuff at the end. So hang on with me until the end and you can learn about all of that. So we're going to talk about now what you're going to learn specifically today. And again, just real quick, Amanda says Mary and I are here. Hey, Amanda. Okay, so yeah, so once again, if you're not hearing or seeing everything okay, just refresh the page and you should be good to go. So we're going to get into it now. So today we're going to talk about how to evaluate your current goals, maybe what you planned for the beginning of 2015 or just the school year. And we're going to talk about how to adjust or tweak those plans to take big action in 2016. Because even though it's not the beginning of a new school year, depending on when you start, I know some people like to start in January with the new year, but you know, it's important to reevaluate your goals. And January, when you're starting to feel that rut, is a really great time to do that. We're going to talk about transforming your physical space to take learning to the next level and, you know, totally excite your kids with learning. You know, when we're homeschooling, often we try to like recreate that classroom feel, or we kind of move away from the bland classroom feel of a lot of public schools. So we, as homeschoolers, we tend to go one or two ways. We either like overdose on the classroom experience and then it is kind of lost on our children, or we tend to just kind of move away from that and don't really have a designated learning area in our home. And that can cause a little bit of a struggle as well, no matter what kind of learning philosophy you're going with. So we're going to talk a little bit about your physical space. We're going to talk about the importance of connecting with your child's interests in your goals and plans. This is a really big one. I should have put this as number one, but this is kind of where it fell in the sequence. But this one's really important. And I'm going to talk about the best method that I've found for daily planning for success. And this is kind of like my key signature thing that I like to talk about, and that I'm going to be sharing with you throughout today is, you know, the best way to plan each of your days so that you can get the most out of every day. So I have a question for you, and you can answer me down in the chat box. Have you ever tried goal setting and planning for homeschooling before? And now I don't necessarily just mean like lesson plans or, you know, looking at your curriculum and pulling out what the curriculum says. I'm talking more about like specific personal goals. So goals that you might have for yourself as the teacher or the parent, setting specific learning goals or experiences for your children. And then have you tried sort of planning out those? And if you have, how did it go? Did you reach your goals easily? Or did you find yourself frustrated and overwhelmed and kind of around this time of the year feeling like you just want to give up? You start to feel like maybe you're not cut out for this. You know, your children are kind of struggling with you and you might be having some, you know, like personal battles with your children or with your spouse maybe. Or have you not tried this at all? And if you haven't, why not? So go ahead and share in the chat box with me below if you can. If you're joining on the replay, you should still be able to engage in the chat box. So just to get those answers out, go ahead and type those down there. Think about that question there, because that's really kind of where we're going to start with this, is the idea that, you know, when you pull your kids out of school or when you make the choice to homeschool them, which is, you know, one of the most amazing choices you can make as a parent, you know, we kind of get that feeling like, where do we go from here? Where do I start? How do I know what we're achieving? How do I know how to move forward? How do I know that we're growing, that my children are learning, right? You have all these like fears and frustrations. And a lot of times we don't even think about setting big goals or small goals and planning towards those goals, we kind of think of everything as like a to-do list or a lesson plan. And we kind of get stuck in that day-to-day, that day-to-day to-do. And that's when we start to feel like we're really in a rut. And that's why we end up feeling this way around Christmas time. Oops. Go. So I've totally been there. I was homeschooled myself as a child. We did, my father was in the military, excuse me. We moved around a lot. So I was homeschooled as a child. I remember starting to feel this way, around Christmas time and, starting to wonder, what's next? What are we going to do next? Every day starting to feel the same. I'm getting bored with the material, that just like rolling ball of boredom starts to set in with some of the material, especially as an older child. Excuse me, there goes my voice. I hope I can make it through the presentation. Excuse me. As a teacher, I worked in the public school for 3.5 years. And as a teacher, again, you start to feel that. And one of the big reasons I left the public school system was the overemphasis on standardized testing. And in the school system, if you're familiar with it at all, this is the time of year where they start hitting you with that standard. Everything is about the testing because the testing comes up in the spring. So this is when it really starts to feel like a rut and you really feel like you're not working towards any goals because it's just testing, testing, testing. And now as a homeschooling parent myself, I've definitely felt that frustration of feeling like I haven't set some goals or like I am doing the same kinds of things every day. It's getting boring. So, I've been right there with you. I totally understand. Looking here in the chat box, Kathy says, I always know what I want, but we have so many changes that we seem to lose ground in personal goals. The day-to-day is always changing. Yeah, absolutely. So, you set those big goals, and that's definitely something that I struggle with too, Kathy, is setting these really big goals and getting excited about them. And then something changes, as life does when you have children. And you just kind of fall behind a little bit. And then that goal seems further and further away every single day. And you kind of don't know how to catch up with it, right? Joanna says, my biggest goal is to simply set up a flexible routine. Yeah, flexible is the really key word there. I feel like I end up giving up after only a day or two. Absolutely. And that's exactly it. You just kind of feel overwhelmed and you just kind of give up on it. And I should have put in here some pictures of some of my old calendars. I would get super elaborate about my goals, right? I would get this big goal idea in my mind that I wanted to create this big playroom area. And I wanted to have, like, every single morning when my son woke up, I wanted to have these little learning activities ready for him so he could wake up and get out of bed and get right to learning. And I would draw up I would get like big poster board pieces of paper and spend hours like with a ruler and different colored markers drawing this big calendar for all of my goals. And then day 2 came and I fell behind and I was like, well, I'm never going to get caught up on this. I give up. Never mind. I'll do it another time. So I totally understand what you're feeling there. Oops. So yeah, like I just said, I'd set super big, amazing goals for learning activities. And in a few days, totally overwhelmed, didn't know how to backtrack and catch up. And I would just give up. But then I discovered some keys to successful homeschool planning. And truthfully, I kind of wrapped this all up in homeschooling. But to be honest with you, a lot of everything I'm talking about today is how I plan everything in my life. It's how I plan my business. It's how I plan my housekeeping. It's how I plan homeschooling. It's truly how I plan everything. So, this can be applied across the board. So 5 important steps I'm going to share with you today are kind of how I go through the process of planning. And really the biggest key, there's 2. The 2 biggest keys are flexibility, like Joanna mentioned in the comments. Being able to be flexible and have a flexible schedule is totally key. And then the other thing is being able to revisit those goals every now and then. And you have to understand that setting a goal doesn't mean that you can't do anything until you reach the exact, idea of that goal that you had in your mind. You have to revisit it. But we're going to get into that here in a moment. So now, after discovering these keys and discovering this planning method, I wake up every morning with a purpose and a plan, and my kids can't wait to learn. And those things make every day better. You know, I admit I'm not a morning person, and my children are. They're awake before the sun every morning. And that was always, you know, identifying that was kind of a block for me, or overcoming a block for me, because you know, I knew that I had to wake up with a plan, or part of my morning routine had to be setting an intention and setting a plan for the day, to reach those goals, however big or small they may be, because that kept me in a better mindset and put my children in a better mindset and made them excited to learn. So after I discovered all of these keys, now I help others do the same. And one of the things I do, and I'm not going to talk too much about this today, it's not really the focus, but some of these images here are from one of my Facebook groups. I have written a pre-K curriculum and kind of put together a membership package. And we have a Facebook group where we share a lot of what we're doing. And if you look at some of these pictures here, you can see some of the children. I know Mary's joining us. I don't know if she can see. She said she was having mobile problems, but that's one of these children here is Mary's child. And these, you know, here we just see these children just having fun and being engaged and exploring. And I shared some of the text too, if you can see it there. Just, you know, children really engaged and having fun. And I help make the planning process as easy as possible. And if you want to learn more, if you have a kindergartner or preschooler at home, I put there on the bottom bit.ly/CFB preschool. If you're not familiar with this, jot that down. You can check it out on your own time. This isn't really what I want to talk about today. But I did just want to share how I've been able to help others kind of get into that little bit of a planning process. So I see people, Amanda sees Mary. Oops, there we go. Okay, so, but let's really get into the meat of things today. So if you haven't already, go ahead and grab that action guide. Quick little overview. We're going to talk about first why it's important to set goals. And then we're going to go through my 5 steps of rocking your New Year planning. And again, this kind of goes, you know, once you kind of fall into this pattern of goal setting, it doesn't just have to be at the new year. You can kind of do this sort of process, you know, every 30 days, every 60 days, you know, every quarter, whenever it kind of fits best with your routine. But following these plans, these steps can really make a difference in the way that you're planning for your goals. So grab that action guide, because you do have a little section there at the top about why it's important to set your goals. So research is really clear on this. And actually now with New Year's resolutions type stuff coming up, you'll probably see a lot of this kind of stuff flooding your social media. But there's a lot of research done around people who set goals and people who set resolutions. And the more specific that we tend to make our goals or our resolutions, the more likely we are to achieve them. So if we're just kind of aimlessly on a path, you know, as I was talking about earlier, just kind of that like every day, just kind of moving forward, or, you know, just working through that to-do list, we're actually less likely to meet goals that way than if we set, you know, actionable goals, we set specific targets, and then plan to achieve them. We're more likely to achieve them when we set them, basically. So setting goals actually helps you achieve them. And then, like I've been talking about, around January and December, people that are homeschooling start to feel very weary. They feel like they want to just quit, that they're not cut out for it. And having goals helps them move that momentum forward. And it gives you something to work towards, which is really, you know, especially important for your children. And I'm going to talk about how it's important to include them in your goal setting. Excuse me. But, you know, really having that goal in mind and that process in mind really helps you to make that that much more. As I know, but try anyway. The preschooler is not going to let me do this in peace at this time. Catch on the replay. Okay. Thanks for joining anyway, Luna. Yeah, definitely catch on the replay. Okay, so the 5 steps to rocking your New Year planning. Number 1 is check in with your current goals. So if you printed this out before the webinar and you did the pre-webinar worksheet, I asked you to name the one accomplishment in 2015 that you were really, really proud of. And if you want to go ahead and share that in the chat box to kind of, you know, help yourself feel really pumped and ready, and go ahead and do that. So you should have had you should have some goals in mind. So even if you didn't take the time to like write them down or make plans for them, you know, hopefully when you started off this new school year, or when you started off 2015, you had some goals around homeschooling your children. Maybe your goal was that you wanted to pull your child out of school. Maybe your goal was that you wanted to, have a planned activity 3 days a week. Maybe you really wanted your child to be able to read by this specific date. So even if you didn't write them down, you had to have had some goals in mind. So I want you on the action guide there to write down your 3 big goals this year. And again, even if you didn't have them written down before, go ahead and write down the ones that you were thinking in your head anyway. And then what I want you to do, and we're going to, if you want to work along with me, I'm going to go through, again, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time, so you can come back to this, but you really need to look at these goals now, and you're halfway through the school year now, basically. So once January 1st hits, we're halfway through. What needs to be revised? Are any of those goals something that you can check off? Oh, I did that one already, or I've been doing really well with that. It's time to let that one go and set something bigger. What needs to be revised? Maybe some of the goals you set for yourself aren't really that important to you anymore. Maybe something's changed. I think it was Kathy in the chat box that said things change, and she's right. Things change all the time. Maybe, this year my family actually made 2 really big physical moves. We moved across the country, and then we had to move to a new city. So that changed a lot of my goals and the things that we did with homeschooling. I had to make a lot of adjustments in what was important to teaching my son. And it wasn't, more academic stuff. It was a lot of, those more social and emotional issues that he was dealing with. So, things change in your life, things change in your surroundings, and that's okay. And flexibility is a big secret to homeschooling success. And it's one of the best things about being a homeschooler is that you can follow that with your child. They're not, contingent on 30 other kids around them. It's not, what they're going through at the time at home doesn't have to it doesn't have to affect their learning, because you have control over what you can change and what you shift around. So check those 3 big goals. Look at the ones that need to maybe be revised, that maybe need to be checked off, and then go ahead and add some new ones. So what goals would you like to add to your list starting with 2016? Now you can, depending on how you run your school year, maybe this will be a year-long goal, so something that you want to accomplish, in all of 2016, or maybe it's just to the end of this, calendar school year, basically, around the May, June time. What are those goals that you want to add to your list or revise the ones that you already have? So that's the first thing. The first step is checking in with your current goals and making any changes that you need to make. And then number 2 is evaluating your physical learning space. Now, this is one that's kind of specific for homeschooling. You could, like I said, it kind of works across the board in just life in general. But this is true, elsewhere, but specifically in homeschooling. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, I really want you to take a look at where your family generally does most of their learning. Now, a lot of the families that I work with, and myself included, we kind of lean more towards an unschooling philosophy. So following our child's interests, a move away from like the workbooks and textbooks, specifically with younger children. But even still, it is important to have an area in your home that your child has available to do that exploring and to do that studying and then investigating. So if you don't already have a designated space in your home for learning, that's definitely something that I would recommend setting as a goal for 2016. And I have a lot of resources that I'd love to share about setting up a learning space. It's one of the big things I've kind of put together this year for my clients. But I really want you to take note of this space. What is working? Maybe you do most of your work at the dining room table. Maybe the family all comes together and sits down and works at the kitchen table or the dining room table. Maybe you have a classroom set up. Maybe you have a playroom that you use for the most part for investigation. Maybe you work wherever you are outside. So just, kind of take note of that space and, what's working, what's used a lot, what isn't working. Maybe you have something set up that, when you gather around the kitchen table, everybody's kind of uncomfortable and doesn't want to work. So maybe you need to reevaluate the space that you're using. Maybe the living room is more comfortable when everybody's sitting and reading together. Maybe you need a table that's lower to the ground for your younger children. Maybe you need to do more work outside when you can. So really just kind of taking note of, how you kind of engage in your physical space every day with your children and what's working, what isn't. There's spaces on your action guide here to write these ideas down. And, specifically then, what changes do you want to make this year? Is there anything specific that you want to add? Maybe you are really wanting to add more nature to your space, or maybe you really want to add a more prominent reading area to, to your home somewhere for your child, to kind of blossom that literacy interest. So, and then when you're doing this, when you're making plans and adding this physical learning space aspect into your goals, I want you to think about the elements of a learning space that are important to you. And again, even if you are, following that unschooling philosophy, a learning space is still really important, because it's actually, I would argue that it's even more important, because you're kind of, with unschooling, you're kind of putting that responsibility of learning onto the child, which is great, because they learn to be those independent learners. But as the parent, then you need to be facilitating a space for them to be able to do that in. So definitely take a look at your physical learning space. And when you're going back over these steps, we're talking specifically about planning for the new year, but again, reevaluating every couple of months or every 30 days or whenever, going through these 5 steps, it's definitely important to take a look at your physical space every time you go through this process, because what's really working and really interesting your child right now might be totally different in 30 days, in 60 days, in 6 months. So definitely taking a look at the physical space and seeing what you can adjust at that point. So I'm going to check in with the chat box here. Just real quick before we move on. The kids and I developed friendships with other homeschool families. Oh, networking is so important, Amanda. That's awesome. Natural learning outdoors and natural play. Yeah, kids gaining confidence in what they're reading. Biggest goal was to develop a program for your son. That's great. Okay, good. So you've got good goals set, and hopefully I'm not moving too fast for you here. But so number 3, excuse me again, wow, is consult with your child. And like I mentioned, I really think that this could end up being like number 1, but it really doesn't matter. All 5 steps are kind of important. But your child, it is their learning experience. So yes, you're facilitating it, but it's very important to them. So before the webinar, on the pre-worksheet in your action guide, I had you ask your child specifically, what are you really interested in learning? What have you enjoyed or not enjoyed so far this school year? And getting that feedback is sometimes we don't really think to ask, especially with younger children. We feel like we can just gauge their interest. Oh, they weren't really interested in that activity, so that was a bust. I won't do that again. Or, oh, they really, really loved that, so I'll do a lot more of that. That's kind of how we tend to just sort of like objectively decide what we're going to do more of. But we don't really always think to ask them, what are you interested in? What do you want to learn more about? How do you want to learn more? What ways do you like learning? So these are things, hopefully you got some insight about this even before we are meeting today. Hopefully that action guide helped you kind of start that discussion with your children. So I definitely encourage you to sit down with them every time you do this goal planning, and today or tomorrow when you're working back through this action guide, sit down with each of your children if you have more than one, and ask them, what interests you right now? What kind of goals do you want to set for yourself? How do you enjoy learning? Do you like reading about something? Do you like watching videos? Do you like painting? Do you like being outside? Do you want to build? How specifically is just as important as what they want to learn about. And then how can you have to challenge yourself then, now that you have this information, how can you incorporate more of what excites your child? And how can you kind of, if you're following more of a traditional school philosophy, how can you incorporate their interests into what you already have planned, or what you're already, what you have set, what goals, basically, how can you combine your goals and their goals to really create an incredible learning experience for them? So jot those things down in your action guide. Definitely meet with your child at some point over the next couple of days to kind of get that conversation going. And the more that you have this conversation with them, the more they're going to be free and willing to share this information with you, which is going to help both of you in the goal setting and planning process. And then one thing I'd put down there is that I asked you, do you know their learning style? And this is something very specific, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But if you don't know how specifically your child learns best, it's a really, really key, important piece of information that I recommend you discover, because it can make all the difference in the way you present new information to your child. If your child's a physical learner or a visual learner or an auditory learner, you really can, having that piece of information. I've helped a lot of homeschooling families discover that with their children this year, and it's made such a difference in the way that they plan, in the way that they conduct their activities, in the way they learn, even in the way they set goals, because they know how much, how unique, how uniquely, there it is, their child learns. So if you don't already know that, it's a really important piece of information to know for sure. And like I said, no matter their age, it's super important to include your child in goal setting. So if they're 3 or if they're 13 or if they're 18, sit down with them, take the time to talk about what interests them, what they want to learn about, how they learn best, and what's working and what isn't for them. Again, one of the most amazing benefits of homeschooling is that you have that opportunity to tailor an individual learning experience to your child. So incorporate them and let them help you do that. Okay, so step number 4, moving on, I'm checking down the chat box here. My sons hate online lessons. I didn't know they always did them. Yeah. So you don't really even know until you ask. A lot of times there's children that'll just do it. Mom said I have to do it, so I do it, and they might not even complain if that's just part of their nature. But really, until you ask them, you might not even know. So it's definitely a valuable piece of information to, sit down and chat with them about it. Oops. There we go. Okay, so number 4, and this one, I tried to condense it, but this is really like the meat of everything, is your daily planning. And your daily planning needs to be action oriented. And I would say, I've created this 5-step process for my own personal planning, but I'm going to tell you the biggest like aha light bulb moment that I had in, creating this process was this step number 4, was my daily planning. And if you do not take steps every single day towards your bigger goals, they're not going to happen. That's just the bottom line. If you have children and you're homeschooling and you have more than one commitment in your life, it's not going to happen if you don't take action towards it. Other people aren't going to give it to you. I'm assuming, looking at the list of people in here, I'm assuming everybody in here is a mom, but the same goes for fathers. My husband's a stay-at-home dad, so, he is right there with me in relation to this. But nobody's going to bring these goals to you. Your children aren't going to bring these goals to you. All you can do is plan towards them. So something that you need to do and start tomorrow, set 3 goals every day. And the way that we do it in my family is during breakfast. We made it part of our morning routine. Generally, I kind of come up with mine the night before, just in sort of, as I clean up some toys and I clean up the kitchen before I put, everything to bed for the night. I sort of tend to think about my goals for the next day just to kind of, set the tone the next morning. And it helps me with not being a morning person. But during breakfast every morning, we ask each person in the family, what are 3 things that are important to you today? What are 3 things that you want to accomplish? And the biggest key here is that these daily goals are not a to-do list. They're not things on the honey-do list. They're not even things on the lesson plans. They're not laundry. The laundry will get done eventually, I promise. Don't waste one of your 3 daily goals on laundry or writing lesson plans or, doing a worksheet. Pick those 3 goals that will move you closer to your bigger goals. And that is something, doing that every day completely changed the way that my family and I got things done every day. Completely changed it. Now, a lot of times we end up accomplishing all of those goals before lunch because we talked about them. We're all invested in each other. We help each other out in attaining those goals. And it really helps us to feel more motivated and more ready to, kick butt and get closer to those goals. So, each day you want to keep in mind some of those bigger goals that you had set before. So on the action guide, I kind of broke it up for you in your VIP daily goals, monthly goals, and yearly goals. So you kind of want to always keep those bigger goals in mind. If you have a lot of visual learners in your family, one of the things I recommend doing is kind of when you do that first part of your goal setting to kind of make like a goal banner or some kind of visual that you can put up in a prominent space in your home so that everyone's aware of everyone's goals and everyone can be invested in helping each other meet those goals. And then each day you can look at those together and say, okay, what do you need to do today to get closer to this goal for this month or for this year? What can we do to help you get closer to that? What do you want to accomplish? And so setting your goals that way, and then having that to-do list on the side that to-do list is just going to become part of what you do each day. It's going to just sort of be, I work with a coach who, what does she call it? Her incremental laundry is what she calls it. Her name's Shauna Yao. Definitely check her out if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner. But she has this thing she calls incremental laundry. And it's just the things that you do, and you're going to do them no matter what. Don't waste your daily goals on those kinds of things that are going to happen eventually. Let those things kind of weave their way in, and then they won't take over, and you're going to feel excited. You're going to feel motivated. This, as you can tell by how much I'm going on, this seriously is like the big thing. Okay, so checking in on the chat box here, Lori asked, yes, Lori, this will be on replay. So if you were, as long as you were registered to join in, you'll get the replay when it's all over. And then Amanda says, like a family dream board. Exactly. I love that idea. Yeah. So, my family isn't really a visual learner. We're all kind of more physical and auditory. So we just, I write my goals down in a notebook. My husband writes his down in a notebook. But in general, we just kind of talk about it all the time. But yeah, if you have visual learners in your family, absolutely get that dream board up. That's a great idea, because really when everybody's invested in everybody else, what an amazing sense of like harmony and camaraderie and family that you guys can all have together when you're working towards goals collectively and individually, right? Okay, moving on. So step number 5 is something that we don't often think about, but it's super important, and that's planning with intention. And this is where you're going to access your sort of more mental or spiritual side. So, especially when it comes to homeschooling your children, being in touch with your mother's intuition or your your parent intuition, it makes all the difference in the goals that you set, in the actions that you take. You truly do know what's best for your child. I firmly believe that a parent is the best teacher for their child. I know that not everybody is in a situation where they can homeschool their children, but regardless, a parent is the most equipped to be their child's teacher, because nobody knows them better. Nobody knows when their child's having an off day, when they're having, a struggle with something else, when they need to take a break, when they're ready to push harder. Nobody knows more than you. So access that. Don't move away from that intuition. Don't be bombarded with what, I have, I'm trying to put this in the best language here, forgive me. I have a lot of Facebook groups that I'm in as a moderator, that I'm in as an admin, and just as a conversationalist. And we get so bombarded with this like mommy war, my kids are doing this, my kids are doing that. Don't get bogged down by that. You are their mom, or their dad, specifically what your child needs, and really tapping into that spiritual aspect of your family. That makes all the difference in the way that you plan. So really don't think about what your curriculum is saying. Don't think about only what your, peers or other people, or even inside a homeschool community or homeschool group. Don't worry about that. You need to do what's best for your family and your child. So taking a time at the end of all of these steps to really get in touch with your spiritual side, or your mental side, and determining what is feeling good and what isn't feeling good. So one of the most important things I recommend doing with that, and this is on your action guide, and I recommend doing this with your family. My family does it all day long. Kind of, when I started it, it drove my husband completely crazy, but he's totally on board with it now. And he came to me actually recently and told me that he finds himself doing it on his own to improve his mood, which is pretty great. But there's something I really recommend is called gratitude practice. And it's exactly what it says. It's just being thankful. When you're feeling, especially this time of year, when you're feeling like you're in a rut, or you want to give up, or you're overwhelmed, start by being thankful. What are you thankful for? And you can start, there's always one thing, even when things feel totally at the bottom, there's always one thing you can be thankful for. And you can probably start with, I'm thankful that I get to stay home with my kids, right? So, and that one thing can snowball into so many other things. I always like to start with, I'm happy that I have a warm house. I'm happy that I have a supportive spouse. I'm happy that I have the opportunity to stay home with my kids. And you can go on and on and on. And the more things that you find to be thankful for, the happier and the better mindset you put yourself in, and the more you feel like you can accomplish, and the more you can do. So, having that gratitude practice with your family, I like doing this at the end of every day when everybody's getting kind of tired, maybe a little, reaching that meltdown hour. It's a really good opportunity to come circle back around, did you accomplish your 3 goals today? What are you happy about? What are you thankful for? And then kind of moving into that more spiritual mindset of, how can we come together? How can we help each other move forward? Again, what are we thankful for? And how do we keep this momentum going in the future to work towards our goals? And then one thing here that I always put down with goal setting and planning is, especially for parents and moms in particular, don't forget about your self-care, please. We give so much every day. And even I, right now I'm sitting here, I'm working and getting this all done and I have the flu. I need to take care of myself too. And moms don't tend to do that. We go. We have all these things we want to get done. But for me specifically, if I don't plan self-care into my routine, it doesn't happen. So something every day, every other day, just one little thing, meditation, prayer, a hot shower by yourself, whatever it may be that helps you kind of ground yourself, to be sort of that pillar in the homeschooling home. Do that, plan for that. It's so important. Jill said, what's the name of your coach? Okay, so real quick, her name is Shauna Yao. I don't work with her specifically one-on-one right now. She's a coach that I've worked with in the past and someone I follow, but she's fantastic. So yeah, if you run your own small business, definitely take a look at Shauna Yao. She's pretty great. Anyway, moving on. So these 5 steps are exactly the steps I take for goal planning in my homeschooling routine, but also in my plan firmly. It will be the first thing I toss out. Self-care. Absolutely. Kathy's right. And Kathy, actually, I'm going to call you out a little bit. Kathy and I are Facebook friends, and she's been such an inspiration to me. I've just been watching her. You've really just been kicking butt with the self-care and you're a big inspiration. So kudos, lady. But yeah, so these 5 steps, this is exactly the steps I take. It's made all the difference in my life, specifically with, evaluating my physical space each time I do it, and then those daily planning tasks, making the difference and the distinction between a to-do list and a goal list, huge game changer for me. So this is how I goal plan for homeschooling. This is how I goal plan for business. This is how I goal plan for everything. And I just personally, because I'm kind of OCD, I keep these all separated in my life. I can multitask better that way. But for some people, it might be just kind of 3 goals for the whole day. Maybe one of those is a business goal. One of them is a homeschooling goal. One of them is a home goal. But I like to keep mine separate. It's just easier for me. So it's just kind of whatever works best for you and your family. So now I'm not sure exactly what brought you here today. Maybe you're here because you feel stuck. You're stuck with your current routine. You're looking for something new. You need to be shaken up a little bit, right? Thrown in a jar, in a homeschooling glitter jar, shaken up and spit back out or something. I'm really bad with analogies. That sounds ridiculous, right? Or perhaps you're super excited for the day your homeschooling experience feels like it clicks, like you've just been waiting for that day of clicking. And if you're not there yet, you know what I mean. And if you are there, you also know what I mean. You're waiting for that day when it's just like, this is what I wanted. This is how I want to feel, how my kids want to feel, how we want to feel. This is that click that you were looking for. So maybe you're still searching for that. So I want you to know that you can do this, and a lot of times when we feel in these ruts, that's all you really need to hear is that you got this, you can do it. You've been doing it. Everybody is in this rut. Even, I have this 5-step planning goal. I'm still planning every day, but this time of year, everybody feels that. So it's just really about recognizing it and deciding to take action on it, right? So you can wake up every morning, you can be excited, you can have joy, you can be ready to learn right along with your child. You can set big goals, you can make action-packed plans, and you can make the most of every learning opportunity. And regardless of your philosophy, I think it's really important to understand that everything in your life can be a learning experience, a trip to the grocery store. So even if you decide we're putting schoolwork aside for the day and we're just going to run some errands, those days can teach your child more than what you might do sitting around the dining room table. Pricing things. I use the grocery store as an example, so I'll roll with that. But like price comparisons and menu planning and healthy eating and interaction with others, asking for assistance to reach something, and talking with other people. identifying service employees, checking out, paying for something, counting change. All of those are very valuable learning experiences that our children wouldn't get in a public school, that we can provide them through homeschooling experiences. So really making the most of every learning opportunity that you have, and in a happy and exciting way. You can do that. You absolutely can. So how can you make my specific 5-step type of planning work for you? So you have 2 options here. So you can do this on your own. You can trial and error it. You can spend some time and maybe end up with some of that, oh, too familiar frustration that you're probably here because you're feeling that, right? Or you can get a step-by-step course that takes the confusion out of the process, helps you with your planning and your goal setting, and gives you your best homeschooling year yet. Now, that can be this homeschooling year because we're still in it, right? We're right in the middle. So I'm introducing a new course that I'm teaching. It's called, right along with this webinar, it's called Rock Your New Year, and I'm going to be teaching it in January, and it's just going to be a 30-day action-packed course that's going to help you as a homeschooler make big changes in 2016. So we're going to basically go back through these 5 steps together, and we're going to plug those all in, and we're going to make big specific changes for you. We're going to get you on a plan to make huge changes this year. So some of the features of this course: you're going to set goals for you and your children that excite you and motivate you to learn together every day. You're going to discover how your child learns best, and that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier with the learning styles. You're going to discover how your child learns, and then you're going to discover how to teach to their interests so that learning is engaging and fun instead of frustrating and overwhelming. You're going to incorporate learning in real, meaningful ways so that it kind of feels like you're not really even learning at all. I'm going to share a lot of ways that you can kind of just incorporate learning every single day. And then we're going to talk about setting up a physical learning space that feels like a magical wonderland instead of the typical boring primary colors classroom. And we're going to do this through these modules. It'll be 4 modules over a 30-day period. First will be goal setting, so how to plan for success in your homeschooling journey. The second is learning spaces. So again, we're going to talk about how to transform that learning space, and we're going to talk about how to do it with what you have, so for free or very, very, very little cost. That's the goal, is to set up a learning space with materials that you already have there. And then I'm going to call this module Ninja School. I am not going to teach you how to be a ninja. I have 0 experience with that. I cannot put that on my resume. But I am experienced in teaching you how to incorporate learning into your everyday life that is like stealthy learning, basically ninja learning. So your child doesn't even know they're learning. They're having fun, they're playing, they're exploring and experimenting, but they're learning all kinds of information and they don't even know it. And then the last module will be planners for success. This time of year is when planners just explode, right? All of the end caps in Target are full of like gold sparkly planners or whatever the popular color is right now, teal and gold, I think it is, or coral. So there's new planners at every end cap in the department stores. Every other post on Facebook is about a new planner. And I have an action planner that I'm going to give you that's basically what I use every day. So in the course, you'll get a copy of that action planner. But I really want to talk to you about how to, in a way, DIY it. Or basically what you're going to do is determine each day what's most important to you to have in a planner, because it doesn't make sense to buy a planner that is just going to stress you out. And that having that on that like visual in front of you that isn't working for you can really halt the process of goal setting and planning. So we're going to talk specifically about what's important to you in your daily planning, and then how to find a planner that fits specifically with your personal needs. And then after this course, you get to spend your days enjoying fun, exciting experiences with your children. Your children are learning and reaching new heights, having a blast while doing it, and you don't have any more of that stressful planning overwhelm. That's the goal. That's how you'll feel after you complete this 30-day course. So the investment is just one payment. It's $47. That's it. It's not elaborate. It's not expensive. It's just a little bit more than $1 a day. And right there is how you can get it. I'm going to put that link in the chat box for you. It's bit.ly/rock your new year. So you can pop on over there and get that. And there should be a link if you're you're watching here on the page directly, right down below to the right of the chat box is a link right there that you can get through as well. So you could click it through the chat box. You can also click the link right there to the side to sign up. And that will take you right through this course to get in. Let's see here. So also, yeah, so there's also a fast action bonus. So if you order before the end of the webinar, you'll also get a copy of my ebook, What is My Child's Unique Learning Style, for free. So this will you'll get this right away in your email. It will help you discover your child's learning style to kind of get some of that information on the brain before we really get started. And then you can, yeah, so here's the link again. Joining now, bit.ly/rock your new year, one payment of $47. This is what it looks like when you click through. So it'll tell you they have the special offer, Learning Styles ebook. This was the countdown when I took the screenshot just a little bit ago. So you can click this yellow button right here. It'll sign up now. It'll take you to a link where you can pay through PayPal, or, and I show you this because a lot of people don't know this here, right down here, you do not have to have a PayPal account to pay through PayPal. And this is true for everything, not just this course. But you can click right here to pay with a debit or credit card. That also takes care of that. So some FAQs. When does it start? So the course starts January 1st. I am not at all about to tell you that we're going to start a course right in the middle of the holiday season, right? So I'm talking about this now to kind of get your mindset in the right space. We're going to start January 1st. Next week, I'm going to send you like a little pre-course worksheet. You get a survey, and just so that I can kind of get to know you if you're new to me. Then you're going to enjoy the holidays with your family, and then we're going to come back in 2016 and ready to get right into it. So how is the course presented? It's video modules, and then there's printable worksheets throughout to help you work through the course. And I really want you to be able to do this at your own pace. I know we're all super busy. We all have different schedules and lives and time zones. I'm definitely not going to be doing this as something that is live and requiring you to log in live. It's going to be on a platform that helps you just kind of click through and complete as you're ready. You get to do the video modules, print out the worksheets when you're ready, work through it at your own pace. There's also a little support group that we'll have so that you can bounce ideas off of other people, make some connections, work with me for assistance if you need it, and we'll have that there for you as well. And then, can't I do this on my own? Absolutely. But, I can help you take the pain and frustration out of this process. If this is something that you're not familiar with, that you haven't done, or if you're just continually feeling frustrated with the way that your planning is going and your goal setting is going, I can help you set up a plan of action in 30 days. And then, you'll have access to this. It's not lifetime access for this course specifically because it's going to change. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is going to be specific to a new year. So I don't want you, I want you to make the investment and then take action on it. So it will be available probably for like 4 to 5 months so that you don't have to do it right away. You can work at your own pace, but it's not going to be available forever because I want you to take action right away. So the fast action bonus ends when the webinar ends. So you'll have about 15, 20 more minutes. I'm going to go into a Q&A to answer any questions you might have. But for now, we're going to continue with a Q&A here, and then the fast action bonus of that Learning Styles ebook, it ends when the webinar ends. And if you're joining me on the replay, that specific bonus is already gone, but you can definitely still join in with the one payment of $47. So we're going to go into a Q&A now. I'm going to leave this screen up. I'm going to pop over to the chat box. So if you have any questions about the course or what we've talked about today, go ahead and throw those in the chat box. I'm going to scroll back through and spend some time doing that. I'll spend about 15 minutes or so answering questions unless we just don't have any. And then that fast action bonus will end there. So, okay, Kathy, good question. Okay, Kathy asked if this is included in the membership. Yes, so if you are one of my lifetime members, yes, you already get this course. Do not go pay for it. So, I see a couple of familiar names here. So if you've already paid to join me as a lifetime member, you will get access to this course as soon as it's available. So you do not have to check out through here. I'm going to scroll back because if that's something that you're curious about, here it is. So right here, oh, I'm moving it. Okay, right here, if you have a preschooler or a kindergartner at home and you want to join me as a lifetime member, basically what that means is you are a member of my life. You get everything that I've created and everything that I'm going to create, just like this, you get access to. You never have to pay me again, basically, for all of the things I create through my new site. So if you go to bit.ly/CFB preschool, I'll put that in the chat box so that it's clickable for you. So if you go there, that will give you access to the membership, and you get specifically what's in it right now is my full curriculum. I just released a new Christmas module in there too. The curriculum, I have 4 mini e-courses that are already available right now, kind of a lot like this one. They're 10-day email courses. It's like nature hacking your learning space, creating a literacy-rich learning environment, homeschooling 101. There's another one, a meaningful technology course. There's lots of e-courses that are already in there. I have ebooks in there, including the learning styles ebook is in there. So you get that as well. We have a private support group. We're going to do monthly hangouts. So it's a brand new membership site. It's super awesome. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So that was a tangent, but if you can head over there if you're new and you don't know what I'm talking about, that's where that is. And then you wouldn't have to buy this, you'd get that anyway. So yes, in short, that is included in the membership. So let's see, going back, I'm going to go back through to the beginning here to see what I might have missed for questions. All right, so someone asked about the replay. Again, as long as you were registered, yes, this will be sent in a replay. So you can go back through and watch it again, and maybe pause on some of those topics to work through your action guide. If you did not get the action guide and you just joined me by clicking over through Facebook, scroll back through wherever you found the link to join me. There would also have been an invitation to register. So scroll back through that page where you found it and register. The registration's not closed. You can still register, and then you'll get the link for the action guide, and you can print that out and see exactly what's in there. Okay, so let's see. So Joanna asked, examples of 3 goals I set for myself every day. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so let me think. Today would be kind of boring because most of it was all related to work. So 3 goals that I tend to set for myself are, I always have a business goal that's something that's going to push my business forward. I like to say, Shalene Johnson, if you don't follow her, she's the PIO lady, but she also, I recently discovered, runs a really amazing and successful like business growth business. And she has some pretty great podcasts. She's very inspirational. So definitely check Shalene Johnson out as well. But she, what was I saying? 3 goals you set for yourself. Now I don't even remember. Ooh, this flu is getting to me. What did she say? I feel like I'm talking to myself. I was talking about the 3 goals that I set for myself every day. And then I went into Shalene Johnson. Yes, she's amazing. Yeah, she really is. She's great. And she's so amazing that she made me forget everything that I was talking about. No, it's gone. I don't remember. So 3 goals I set for myself every day. 1, oh, yes, I remember. So she talks about business goal. Yes, thank you. She talks about moving the needle. And I really like that because specifically when you're talking about goals, and this can be a business goal or a homeschooling goal or a life goal, any goal that you have, she talks about moving the needle. So do the tasks that move you closer to your goals. Basically move that needle towards your goal. If the things that because a lot of times we make like little things a priority and these little things are not going to move the needle, right? So I always try to do at least one of my 3 goals every day is something that's going to move my business forward. So for example, today, my goal was to do this webinar. I know that's like a big, that's a multi-layered goal, but that was my goal because doing this webinar moves my business forward. It reaches new people and it helps people, which is one of the biggest goals of my business. It helps people make plans and set goals, and it moves my business forward. So that's one of my goals today. One of my goals is always related to this is kind of sharing a personal goal. One of my family's personal goals is moving. Basically, we want to be flexible with where we live. So location freedom is what they call it. We really want we're making it a goal to move to Europe. So I always have, I try to have a goal that kind of moves me closer to that. I hope my mother-in-law doesn't watch this webinar because she's not supposed to know that that's happening. But anyway, this replay will not be available for a very long time for self-incrimination. But for those of you that follow me and want to know that very personal thing about me, one of my personal goals every day is generally something that moves us closer to that goal. So that might be doing specific research about visas, or reaching out and connecting with somebody about how to make that move, and researching specifically what country we might be interested in. But those, I always have a goal related to, or generally have a goal related to that kind of really big life goal. And then let's see, my goals are, and then I always have something related to the children, of course, my homeschooling goal with them. So maybe it's spend a specific amount of time reading to my children, or maybe I want to take them on a field trip somewhere, visit something specific. Maybe I really, sometimes when we're feeling like we're kind of in a rut, I make it a goal to have a really like a personal time with each one of my children, so that we're not just kind of feeling all, flustered and stuck together. So I hope that helps a little bit. None of that really made much sense, I don't think. But so we're going to go for a couple more minutes. If you have any other questions, I probably just scared a whole bunch of people away with that rambling. Like, she doesn't know how to set goals. What's she talking about? So yeah, so if you have any other questions, go ahead, throw those in the chat box. If you're joining me for the replay, you should still be able to access the chat box. So you can throw some questions in there and I can reach out to you personally about that. Or you can always email me. Very helpful tips. Yep. Thank you, Robin. I hope that I was able to share some good information with you today. Definitely, if you haven't already printed out the action guide, that will help you. It has a lot of these kind of like printed out for you right there. So you should be able to go back and access those. Excuse me. And we are going to leave the fast action bonus up for a few more minutes. I am desperate for a drink of water, so I am going to go ahead and mute my microphone, but I will keep everything running for a few more minutes to give you a chance to join that fast action bonus there. And if you have any other questions, please throw them in the chat box, and I will pop back in to answer them, or I'll just type them out there. But thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to, if you have somebody that you know that would benefit from this, when you get the replay link in your email, feel free to share it with them, and pass around that action guide. And I hope that you can definitely make some changes right away. But definitely take it easy over the holidays. One thing I really recommend, and that I'll talk about in my course also, is the importance of like deschooling is what I like to call it, but also just kind of like, it's important to take breaks with your family, just kind of let it slide. If you're really feeling resistance right now and overwhelm, I promise you your children are feeling it too. So, slow down, finish up something that has to be finished, and then just set it aside for a while. It's totally okay to just dive headfirst into the holiday spirit. You won't regret time spent with your family ever, no matter what. So, enjoy the holidays and then come back full swing in January, and you won't regret that time. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and throw those in. Again, we're going to have a couple more minutes here, just until that timer runs out for that extra bonus there if you join me for Rock Your New Year. And I'm really excited to help you make action-packed plans for 2016. And I will see you over there, or if I have a lot of my members joining me today, so I'll see you back in my membership group. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me.